Men will not only fake illnesses, lie about cancer, all this stuff, they also fake health. Look at this. Okay, this is one of my commenters. I'm so glad they brought this up because this is super important. Please listen up. They purposely don't disclose health problems, basically lie through omission. Men lie about so many things through omission. If you don't ask, hey, do you have a secret family? They just won't tell you and they'll think that's fine. My mom didn't know my stepdad had heart problems until after she married him. Then she ended up supporting him because he couldn't work due to his illness. Okay, so there's a whole nother video I need to make about men who are unemployed bums and all the ways they trick women into literally doing all the work. And faking illnesses is one of them. But also not talking about an illness is another. But now I actually want to take this a little bit further because that is literally a whole video in and of itself of why I like to warn women not to date men who are way older than you. And I would even argue when you're after 40s and 50s, please don't date older. These men don't take care of themselves. They have so many problems. They don't feed themselves. They have addictions. They just don't take care of themselves, which is another reason why they die right after their wives die. That's why grandpa died right after grandma. He probably unalived her slowly through stress, and then he's too lazy to take care of himself, so then he just gave up and died. That's another video. But you do not want to be a hospice wife, which, by the way, I just found out who came up with that perfect term. I'm going to tag her and link her. Please go follow. It is literally one of the most helpful terms I have ever heard in terms of explaining what you will happen to you if you marry these men who are sick or way older. You are going to be their nurse and their purse. Okay? So I read this article a couple months ago, and I want everyone to see this as a cautionary tale, especially for women. It's not always women, but it's oftentimes women because women are almost always the caretakers of people. Their husbands, their boyfriends, their mother and father-in-law, their parents, their brothers, their friends whose husbands won't take care of them. The quiet rage of caregiver. Now, this was in the New York Times a while ago, and it talks about several people, but this woman right here I find very interesting. She's a cautionary tale, and I appreciate her talking about this, but she still seems to be missing the mark a little bit. I'm going to get into that in a second. So she goes into the details of what it is like caring for a partner who gets sick. Now, obviously, it's not people's fault when they get sick. It's not, and this is not to be ableist either. I'm not talking about anyone with disabilities. This whole video is literally about men who withhold information on purpose to trick women into caring for them, supporting them, who just straight up lie and then ruin women's lives. And in addition to that, when men do not take care of themselves and then women end up marrying older men because that's what we've been told to do, they don't disclose that, maybe they had some test results come back that weren't so great, but they're not going to the doctor to look in on it. You know what I mean? Even if they don't know there's something wrong, what's wrong, a lot of them know something's wrong and they won't go to the doctor. They just don't want to deal with it. And again, even though that's not actually lying, it is them not dealing with it. And knowing we are going to be the ones taking care of them. That's why they're looking for wives. So many men are looking for women to take care of them because they have probably pissed off everyone in their life. And if they already have children, the children probably aren't talking to them. Their exes aren't talking to them. They haven't knitted the social fabric of community. Their friendships with other men suck because men aren't taught how to have friendships. And so those are empty too. These men are utterly alone and they look for younger women. Not necessarily young women either. I mean younger. Women in their 40s, 50s, 60s. Sometimes they're so bold as date women in their 30s and even 20s, but this is where you got to be careful. Look at all this stuff this woman's doing. 3 times a week having to drive hours to do these appointments. These details are terrifying. She had learned that putting vapor rub under her nose helped certain odors from her husband's deteriorating health. This stuff is so brutal. You wake up one day and you realize you're not a partner and a wife anymore. You're a full-time medical case manager. She stopped seeing friends, gained 20 pounds, and has high blood pressure. And she got really angry. Look how many million Americans are caregivers. Now, this is not just a U.S. American problem, but it is really bad there because we do not have health care. And by the way, the reason why we don't have universal health care is strictly racism. That's it. But the history of that's another video. But if you're wondering why we're like this, it's because of racism, especially anti-blackness. That is literally why we can't have good things, is because we can't detach from that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, do some research, and I'm happy to talk about it later. Nearly a third of caregivers spend 20 or more hours a week in that role. Caregivers are the backbone of long-term home care. But this is what they face: anxiety, depression, chronic health conditions, and financial strain, just to name a few. And they also can't talk about how much it sucks, because then you look like a bad wife. Look at this. The stress is monumental and constant. I was pissed off. And because of the myth of the loving caregiver, women aren't really allowed to complain about it. Now, I appreciate her trying to normalize these feelings, but also, like, look at this man. And look at her when they were together. You also can't plan for the next day or week, let alone the next month or year, because you never know what's going to happen with their health. This article also had example of interviews with people who are caring for parents and stuff like that. There's even a man that they interview, because yes, sometimes men are caregivers, but it's almost always women, and a lot of times it's women doing this for their husbands who won't take care of themselves and who lied. And imagine if you're stuck with this man who has treated you like crap. And then we know how men are when they're sick. Not all men, but you know, they will weaponize their moodiness for literally anything. Imagine that times 100 when they're sick. They like don't even appreciate all the care that you're giving, and they become like total pricks. Not everybody loves the person they care for. I promise you, if you marry this man and he gets sick, you're gonna hate him. Guess what? He already hates you, or he would have never put you in that position to begin with. Like, a lot of times you have to quit your job because of the demand. You get unsolicited advice from people who don't understand how hard this is or the complexities of it. And all of the work you're doing is not even recognized or appreciated by society in general. And a lot of times, these men especially that you're caring for, you're at the risk of diabetes, arthritis, all kinds of stuff. People end up not going to the doctor. And so they end up getting sick and don't even catch their own sicknesses because these men are so exhausted. So this woman that I was referring to before, her husband of 15 years, the last 18 months were misery. So this is a man that she had 2 kids with, a much older man. She had to take care of someone who physically outweighed her by a lot. She had to drive him around like a soccer mom. And then they can't go in there by themselves. She had to park, walk in, This is literally like having a child, but like someone who outweighs you, who is also in a bad mood all the time, does not love you back, and could unalive you, even when they're sick. And then you're going to do all this stuff, all the paperwork, dealing with insurance and stuff, making doctor's appointments. It is unending labor. And then she had to farm her kids out and get childcare. And for 2 years, she missed her own medical appointments. Now, there's even different stats for different sicknesses, but with dementia, 40% of the caregivers die before the patient. This is literally life and death. Do not get tricked into this situation. Now, what's crazy is I looked up this woman even more, and this is why you got to be really careful to take advice from women. Even me. Maybe I'm wrong, okay? But this she wrote in the Huffington Post years ago, shaming women for being child-free. She talks about how she herself wanted to be child-free, and then a colleague was like, why would we have kids? We're having too much fun. And then she wrote this whole thing being like, nah. The declining fertility rate, root of most of our problems, don't be selfish, Not only did this woman marry a much older man, she then had children with him, and then started writing about how, women, you may miss out. And then this whole thing about, you may regret it, you're selfish, the self-absorption, blah, 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 that we all hear. Producing a child, civilization, last chance, blah. I used to hate babies too. I swear, I'm one of you. And then voila, until my husband, this old man who had 2 grown daughters, convinced me of 2 things. He wasn't done parenting, and he felt certain that I needed to begin it. In case you're not clear, this old man that she took care of, who literally, she started a group about women who are enraged having to take care of men, not only became this man's caregiver, this old man, but she had children she never wanted because of him. The dude literally talked her into having kids. Adopting. She even explains how, she, even on the plane to go pick up her kid in China, she was like, her fingernails digging into his back, having a panic attack. We don't have to do this, that. Our lives are perfect. We can just go to church. Please listen to me, that. It sounds like she never wanted children. Or a grown child in the form of a 70-something-year-old man. But she popped some value, and then when she landed, her daughter ran up to her, gave her a hug. Oh, it's all over with. Now she loves being a mom. Motherhood, I love motherhood and caretaking. And now she believes the only reason she came into existence was to be the mother of these children. Children she never wanted, but this man talked her into. Children who became the caregivers too. Not just her children did this. And now she's getting married again. Be careful who you take advice from, y'all.